Hey guys, we're going to be going back to Treshen for another run. This is not really a budget run, this is more of an alternate run, just for getting a clear in. We're not going for a high score in this video. People have been asking me to do clears not using like Maven or Kresnik or Bulwark or Carton, Lara Croft, all that kind of stuff, no Sephiroth. I tried it. I tried doing a run with like literally none of the meta units. It absolutely was not working. Doesn't work. I tried. I did my best. It was just I don't think it's possible. We need to use at least one of the meta units to carry this fight. So we're going to be using Carton for this video, but we are going to leave the rest of those guys on the bench. And we're not using premium cards either. So another kind of thumbs up thing. Anyway, level 99. No modifiers, mostly budget units other than Carton, and we're not using premium cards. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the fight, and I'll explain it and try to give you in detail what's going on. Also, I'm going to try to mention some swaps if you don't have the stuff I'm using. We're also not using any like critical limited gear like Philosopher's Stones and all that. We're not using it. Okay. So, first of all, for turn 1, as everyone knows, turn 1 is completely and absolutely insane. The hardest thing of this fight is surviving turn 1. There's quite a few ways to do it. One of the ways is like pull the new unit Mave. That's the most direct way. You could also do things like Kresnik's Magnus to imbue the boss with light. You could use Seaguard's Magnus to imbue the boss with earth and then absorb those. But we're going to go for the stacking mitigation route instead, using older tanks. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to shift Ling, start her in the base form, wear her TMR in both forms so we can do this, and we're going to do Blithe for morale, Dragon Dancer for LB fill, and Passionate for LB fill. Now Snow is also wearing Call of the Wild, so in the shift form. Notice we're starting Snow in the shift form for some auto buffing. I'll show the gear in detail at the end of the video. But now that Snow was given that, we're going to use his Heroic Guard for 90% mitigation. This does cost 48 LB crystals. Now we filled 30 from Dragon Dancer, 10 from Passionate, and 8 from Call of the Wild. That's a 48 crystal cost guaranteed with no limited items whatsoever on turn 1. So we're going to be using this for 90% general damage mitigation. So Heroic Guard and then physical cover. We're also going to use Shadow Lord for 95% physical damage mitigation. Now these do stack as general and physical stacks. That's going to be a combined total of 95% plus 90%. Lowers your damage taken to 0.5% damage. So we've reduced it by 95, and then 90% more is 0.5% damage taken, or 99.5% damage reduction on turn 1. That's on top of things like his cover mitigation, which is another like 60-ish%. So we're actually only taking something like 0.2% damage taken on the first turn with Snow. Now, if you don't have Snow, you can replace him with Behemoth. Behemoth also has a 90% general mitigation damage reduction we can use on turn 1, and it lasts 2 turns. So Behemoth's Magnus is an excellent alternative to Snow, but I wanted to use Snow instead because he's a little bit older than Behemoth, so he's more accessible. As far as Shadow Lord, if you don't have Shadow Lord, he is UOCable, but I wouldn't do that just for this fight. You could replace him with Bulwark. Bulwark does an 85% damage reduction. It's not as powerful. It's literally 3 times weaker, but it does work if your tank is strong. You could also use things like Yoshikiri that has a 90% damage reduction, single target. There's a few ways to get really, really high damage reduction on turn 1. Anyway, with Shadow Lord and Snow plus Ling to fill LB gauge, we have given Snow 99.7% damage reduction, with his cover mitigation. Anyway, we still need stat buffs and resist buffs. So Fina, in the shift form, is going to be using Heartfelt Cheer. It's a 230 defense buff and a 90 resist all buff. Technically, it does re-raise too, but we're not going to lose anyone here. So there we go. Lots of damage reduction on Snow. Now, Elena is just going to go ahead and fill morale gauge with both the morale fills. We got to fill morale quickly with this clear. So push morale as much as you can. Now Carton, the boss is going to cure debuffs. So on this first turn in the base form, we're just going to do Regain Composure for break immunity. We're going to do Somber Claw for the Dark Imbue. And then Voracious Appetite just to hit the boss and, you know, whatever. Alright, there we go. So the boss does some attacks. We've got, like I said, 99.7% damage reduction. So Snow is completely shrugging this off. I mean, this boss is completely insane. I forgot to mention. Notice Elena is the highest maximum mana pool on the party. That's going to get the mana drain to go to Elena. She's got 2,000 mana in the shift form, which I intentionally geared her to have the most mana in the shift. So she gets the mana drain on turn 1. Now here's the rest of the attacks on Snow. The boss is still going. We're not using very much resistance on Snow, and with the Imperil, he's and Fina is 90% buff. He's currently got, after the Imperil, 10% Earth and 120 Thunder. So a little bit low on elemental resistances, but with the 99.7% damage reduction, it's fine. Okay. So now, Fina is back in the base form, so she's going to do, to fill morale gauge, just Divine Veil. That's a resist all buff and an all stat buff. It's going to fill morale pretty decently. And we're going to Manatopia just to get mana back on Elena. Notice Elena is also using Galbana Lilies, a permanent item that gives her a bit of mana back per turn. She's also using some mana reduction gear. So we didn't even need Fina because 20 mana is enough to do both the morale skills. And that's all we're doing on turn 2 is both the morale skills. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the base form with Ling. We're going to Blithe again for morale. The boss cured debuffs last turn, but he's not going to do that again for the rest of the fight, at least the rest of the fight that we're going to be doing. So now we're going to Disarming Movements to break the boss. And then we're going to do Moving Dance, just because it gives a tiny amount of morale. It's the only reason for that. Alright, Snow on this turn is going to ATB charge. That's a bigger defense buff. It also refills his LB gauge for next turn. Shadow Lord, not much to do this turn. We'll just do Soma Wall and then just hit the boss twice with dark damage for a little bit more morale, you know, whatever. We actually probably should have done that on turn 1 as well. I didn't think of it. Whoops. Whatever. And as far as Carton goes, now he's going to get ready for Bursting the next turn. We're going to Cursed Gift for the Fist Imperil. We're going to Somber Claw for the Dark Imperil and Amplify and all that. And then we'll just do it again, because whatever. Next turn is going to be the real damage. And try not to deal, I think it's 100 million, or I'm sorry, 100 million damage until the burst turn, because it'll cause the boss to get a mitigation buff, and we don't want that. Anyway, there's some attacks on Snow. He's still got the 99.7% damage reduction because we used Shadow Lord's Magnus a second time. We also did his own 90%. So, you know, but turn 2, the boss has breaks, so the damage taken is very, very minor regardless. Alright, so we're just going to reload Fina and just fill morale again. We're just going to Divine Veil and Manatopia, you know, whatever. Shadow Lord on this turn is going to Toxic Rain. That's going to put up Disease on the boss, which is going to lower the boss's defense even further, which is going to be very, very helpful. Snow on this turn is going to get ready for the Threshold. We're going to go ahead and Heroic Guard a second time. It's only a 2-turn duration. And then we're going to go ahead and do Physical Spirit of Chaos to put up physical mitigation because Shadow Lord's Magnus has run out. Ling is going to shift on this turn. She's going to do Blithe Step, Beast Killer with Hunter Stance, and then doesn't really matter what else. What is Passionate Performance for mana regen in case maybe you need more mana. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, so Elena is going to go to the base form. She's going to Speed of Light. We're going to Piercing and Double Salvation. And then Carton's going to go to the Shift form. And he's going to Frenzy. Okay, so these two are going to chain together. And Carton should, for the most part, carry this to the Threshold. It obviously depends on gear, but here we go. He's actually not double hand build right now. So variance shouldn't really be much of a problem. We should relatively smoothly push that. So there it was, 650,000. If I remember correctly, I think we need 500, or I'm sorry, million. I think we need 500 million for the thresholds. We overpushed it by a decent amount, not using premium cards. If you've got Tifa's card, you can do even more damage. I'm trying to avoid using Tifa's card because it is premium. All right, so there's the threshold. And that's pretty much it. The fight's over. The boss did the threshold. The threshold is very low damage regardless, but even so, Snow had 90% mitigation, 50. Snow had a ton of mitigation. That threshold was absolutely nothing. The boss is still diseased. If he wasn't, you could just Toxic Rain again to reapply disease, but he is diseased still. So we're going to go ahead and now just chain up Carton and Elena again, and that's it. There's your clear. Using Carton. So, that is the big disclaimer that this clear needs Carton. Now, you can do it with other units as well, and I'll try to be doing more clears, later in the week. But here is a alternate clear. Again, because we're using a dual wield build, we're not really fighting variance. Dual wield has very, very minimal variance. That's one of the good things about it. It's less damage, but you don't have to worry about those variance swings. So relatively steady damage right there. Here's the breakdown. I mean, Carton completely carries this fight. I feel kind of bad that I kind of called Carton. I called Carton slightly underwhelming when he came out because he does technically deal a lot less damage than Lara Croft. But the catch is Lara Croft needs 300 or 200% LB morale gauge. Carton doesn't really need that morale gauge to be filled to do his damage. So for this fight specifically, Carton is amazing for this fight. Anyway, that was my level 99 clear. Using everything cheap except for Carton. So let's go ahead and show the team and the gear. My Carton is EX3, which is obviously better than EX2. You get the 500 flat attack. We did overkill by a decent amount, so if you have an EX2 Carton, it should still work totally fine. So here is the team. Now, as far as unit swaps go, I already covered the Snow swap, I believe, earlier in the fight. Behemi is a wonderful swap for Snow. You could use C card in the shifted form to do the Earth Imbue on the boss to get like a free turn of damage. Great way to do it. Maeve, obviously really strong. Bulwark is a good swap, etc. As far as damage dealers go, this clear kind of specifically needs Carton. I don't think anyone else could directly replace Carton in this style of clear. We would have to like change a lot of stuff around to make a non-Carton clear, which I'm gonna try to figure out later in the week. But yeah, for a quick clear that doesn't fill the morale gauge, meaning no Kresnik, Carton is one of the very few units that can actually do it within 4 turns. And the reason we're doing it within 4 turns is because after the 4th turn, technically it's on the 3rd turn, but the threshold gives you 1 free turn. But yeah, on the boss's 3rd non-threshold turn, he goes berserk. He just flips out and nukes you from orbit. I have not figured out a way to survive the boss's 3rd non-threshold turn, so I have to kill him by turn 3 plus the threshold, so turn 4 is my limit for my clears currently. Anyway, here is the gear we used. So Elena, in the base form, geared for damage. You saw the breakdown. Her damage was absolutely trash. Part of the reason is we didn't fill the morale gauge. More importantly, she's a free old unit, but whatever. 250 Beast, 250 Dragon, and we are using the chain cap up. Shift form, she had the highest MP pool possible with mana reduction and Galbana Lilies. Also using an auto amplify for Dark because Carton AoE imbues Dark but doesn't amplify it for anyone except himself. I mean, Elena's damage is so irrelevant, like, it doesn't even matter that much if you don't have, like, Rakshasa Blade. But if you do have it, toss it on her. There we go. So a lot of mana regen because she is going to get mana drain, and we want her to regenerate enough to be able to chain. Although with Fina using Manatopia, that mostly covers it as well. So there we go. There's her build. Carton, base form, status immunity. That's it. Oh yeah, and give everyone status immunity. Because we aren't using status immunity buffs, so make sure the whole party is status immune, because we're not buffing immunity. Well, only in the base form. When we shift on Carton, there's no statuses that we need to worry about on turn 3. Anyway, base form, just status immunity. Shift form is, again, dual wield build versus Beast and Dragons. You really want to use the Dragon Claw Plus in the main hand because it does have the updated variants that they kind of sneaked in early with the Trials of Mana gear. So that makes a dual wield build slightly more viable instead of a double hand build. Anyway, there is the Dragon. Other than that, just Dragon Killer. Now, he is geared very, very well, but I'm not using a premium card. I am using Laura's card, so I guess that's kind of sort of a special card, but it isn't premium, so, she was a regular unit. There we go. You can also swap that out for just, your highest attack power card, like Ling's card would be pretty similar. Like, he's way over on the ATK cap. So Ling's card would have been fine as well. Out of curiosity, what would his attack power have dropped to of Ling's card? Let's take a look real quick. Where is Ling's card? It's right around here. He would have lost 100 attack power of Ling's card. I probably should have done that just to make it, whatever. But anyway, there you go. White Dragon Ling in the base form is just using basically status immunity and her TMR. That's pretty much it. A little bit of auto casting with like Phoenix Synergy, some auto buffing. It's not super big deal. Shift form, pretty much the same thing. Like the only thing really important is status immunity and her TMR or STMR, so she can do her stuff. Athena, again, kind of whatever. Just, status immunity, shift form, status immunity. It's all that matters. She's literally here just for stat buffing and morale buffing with resist all and stat up every turn. She is completely replaceable with anyone you want that can fill morale gauge. So like Kresnik, Bulwark, someone to fill morale gauge. She's just like a cheap option for it. Shadow Lord, didn't use the base. Shift form, again, just some auto buffing and Toxic Rain status immunity. He does the 95% mitigation and disease on turn 3. That's pretty much it. And then Snow. In the shift form, we started him in the shift form using a few things. Now, we did Seraph Staff because it auto buffs status immunity, because we didn't use a status immunity buff. If you don't have Seraph Staff, you could use Ling to Purifying Dance on turn 2 instead of Moving Dance. It would be less morale, but it would cure statuses. So if you don't have the Seraph Staff, it's okay. You'll just lose a tiny bit of morale. This wasn't important. I put that on, and I realized it's not even needed. But we do need Call of the Wild, because that gives you the +8 LB gauge to go along with the 40 that Ling does on turn 1 to get his 90% mid on turn 1. Other than that, just status... oh yeah, give him this to Anti-Decay Amulet, because on turn 1, actually the whole fight, we don't do break immunity. So this gives him break immunity passively for 3 turns, which is all the fight lasts. So to give him that in the base form, and this is just a source of Mirage, Auto Mirage. It's not super big deal. It literally covers 1/6 of the first AoE. It's so minor, but every little bit can potentially help. Anyway, base form, bulk. As much bulk as possible. So he's got 5,000 defense, 3,500 HP, a little bit of earth and thunder resist, not much, but a little bit. Behemoth suit, don't forget, this does auto cast beast mitigation of 10%. So with the boss being a dual race, this is actually a overall 5% damage reduction on top of everything else. You can also stick this in the shift form and start in that form if you're not using Snow. Maybe you're using like a big tank like Gabranth and you need to wear heavy armor. You can put Behemoth Suit in the shift form and that buff will persist after you shift. Anyway, he's using it in the base form because it's one of his better items. So there is his build. Again, a lot of resistance, a lot of bulk. He is geared very well. He is an older tank though. So, there it is. And that was his build and that was the whole party. Okay. So hopefully I've given you some ideas to clear at level 99, some ideas for swaps. The only kind of cornerstone of this party is Carton, and if you don't have Carton, this is probably not the clear for you. Look for another clear in the future. Anyway, see you then.